Living in New York City seems very glamorous. Everybody always talks about how it's the city that never sleeps. It has a really good reputation of being one of the greatest cities in the world. But I'm gonna tell you guys my experience from living here, and I'm gonna tell you right now that I've lived here my whole entire life. Like for the majority of my life. When I was born in New York City, in Harlem, and I was raised there until I was like 5 years old. And back then, I used to live in like the projects building, so I really started from like the bottom. My parents were immigrants, didn't have any money, so we lived in like a government building with like a bunch of ratchet people. But it was like a one bedroom apartment, and we couldn't afford anything else, and that was the only place that we could live in. So we lived there until my sister was born, and then we moved out to Queens, New York, which is also part of New York City. It's like another borough, and I'm gonna tell you right now, there's a lot of challenges that I've experienced throughout my time and growing up in New York, and now even as an adult living in New York City. So in this video, I'm going to review it to you guys and explain to you guys some examples of things that are really hard about living in New York City. The first is the cost of living. Like everything in New York City is just so expensive. The food, the rent, the tolls, right? Even just transportation, getting from point A to point B, is just more expensive now. It's just everything. Like even with now the congestion tolls they're adding in, now you gotta pay $9 just to drive on a road that for the roads that we already pay for with our taxes. So it's just we're getting taxed so hard. We're paying so many fines, so many tolls, and it's just so expensive just to even do business here. Like I see business owners in the city now facing some hard times because a lot of the traffic or like the ability to get into the city is just much more difficult because of that new congestion thing. But even other aspects of like housing is very difficult. Like even if you wanted to like find an apartment right now, if you were just a single person and you wanted to live in New York City, like a single bedroom apartment for yourself to live in, like no roommates, would cost about $2,500. Like that's about an estimate, and that's for like a decent place. And if you want like a closet, like a shoebox of an apartment, around like 1,500 to 2,000, then you can get by. That's like on the cheaper end. You know what I'm saying? Like that's on the cheaper end. So it's really tough because I know for the most part that's not even feasible for some people's salaries. It's just incomprehensible because they got other bills to pay, they have other liabilities, and it's really tough. I'm not gonna lie, it's really tough. Personally, I pay rent, and it wasn't that bad, because my rent was split with another roommate. When I moved out of my parents' house, I found a roommate because it's much cheaper to live with somebody else. They can split the bills with you, and you can save some money that way. Another thing that's more expensive now is the groceries to even eat. Every time I go to the supermarket, the prices of everything just keeps going up. I went to the supermarket the other day, and there's apparently egg shortage. Like you can't even get eggs anymore. One 12 pack of eggs was like $8. That was crazy. I've never seen eggs that expensive before. That's usually like $4, $4 or $5. $8 for a 12 pack. It is kind of crazy. It's tough times now, right? It's really tough, and it's only because there's some kind of bird flu or something like that, some kind of flu going around. Another thing that I find really difficult about living in New York is all the crowded places and lack of personal space you have in public areas. Like let's say you're trying to take the like public transportation. Most of the time when you take public transportation, you're gonna be like pretty much next to somebody, like standing really, really close to somebody or sitting really close to somebody. Personally, I take the LIRR now, the Long Island Railroad, and even that, like, that's a higher end mode of transportation. But even that, I'm still like right next to somebody most of the time. It's kind of crazy, right? So if you do plan on moving to New York City or you are living in New York City, you got to get used to the crowds. You got to get used to the lack of personal space that you're going to experience because there's just people everywhere. You got to get used to it. And That's just everywhere. Like you take the bus, you take the train, you go to the library. Well, not the library. Not a lot of people go to the library, but you go to any kind of like museum or whatever, like any kind of like attraction, or you go to Times Square, or you go to like a restaurant. It's just there's just a lot of people. Another thing that is really hard, not so much in Queens, but more so in like Manhattan, is like the noise, right? I don't know about you guys, but like when I used to hang out in Brooklyn, like I used to sleep over in Brooklyn sometimes, and sometimes in Manhattan, there was always like freaking sirens going off, like freaking either fire department sirens or hot like ambulance sirens, but there's always some kind of noise going off, which was honestly I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand it. It was just so noisy. That's why I actually personally prefer living in Queens. Queens is calm. Like even though I'll get the occasional siren, it's not that bad, right? Because it's pretty calm over here. If something happens, it's not gonna be that crazy. And I live right next to a fire department, so it's like I don't even really like notice it. So it's actually pretty good over here. Queens is not that bad, but I know in other areas, not as lucky, right? When there's areas that more stuff is going on, then yeah. But in Queens, like the area that I live in, very calm. Not a lot of stuff going on. The last thing that I think is really, really difficult about living in New York City is the pressure to succeed and the competition that you see, right? Because you see everybody out there, they're like all trying to go get it. It just feels like you're constantly in a race with other people trying to reach a milestone for your career, trying to get the next raise or next promotion, right? A lot of the people that live in New York City, they always trying to compete. There's a lot of sharks out there, just trying to make sure they get the opportunities, the grabbing the opportunities, really chasing after it, right? When you come here, you're not gonna get far if you're just very lazy. You don't really go after it. You're not really putting yourself out there. So that's another thing that you're gonna have to get used to. Just feeling the pressure, like feeling the competition of other people, because there's just so many people, and they also are just as hungry, bro. You're gonna realize like mad people out here just hungry, man. They're trying to get at it, right? There's hustlers out here, a lot of business owners, a lot of people that just like all about the money, bro. So you got to put yourself out there and put in that work too, because if you don't, you're not gonna be able to keep up. I'll tell you that right now. The number one thing that keeps me here is the opportunities, right? There's always so many customers for whatever business that you want to start. There's so many opportunities to find a job if you don't want to start a business, because there's so many employers here too, right? So that's one of the positive sides. There's some reasons why I do stay here, just because if you need money, if you need a good career path or something like that, New York City is definitely a good option, right? It's definitely top tier in terms of opportunities. So I'm gonna ask you guys a question, and I want you guys to comment down below. What is the hardest part of living in your city? Right? Let me know in the comments down below. And have you ever thought about like moving to New York City? And is it something that you're prepared for? Right? Like this is not something that's easy, because there's a lot of money that you need to get just to even have like enough money to survive, right? Because the homelessness over here is not as bad, but it's still pretty bad. There's still homeless people out here. I hope you guys enjoyed this quick little video, and make sure you subscribe for more videos just like this. Drop a thumbs up if you enjoy. If you did not, drop a thumbs down. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.